Okay, permit application, IWWC 23/17, 63 Bunker Hill Road, the wetlands crossings for an approximately 54-acre timber harvest. Saw log and size, dead or dying trees.
Yeah, he had another wetland meeting tonight. He was hoping to join this one via Zoom, and when he got out of that one, but he wasn't sure what time. That's why I switched the order to later, but he's not on there yet, so.
Okay,
That's still the end of the meeting.
So you recommended we go and do the other business and hold that one open, but city shows up?
We can, if you want. I mean, it would buy a little time, but I'm not sure. He said well, he wasn't sure if he could make it. He was gonna try.
well. Are you gonna give him a call?
Who?
Texting him right now.
Well, let's see what happens. Yeah. Give him a couple of seconds. Move minutes. I know it would be nice to have him there, because, well, he's not really, on the job there, anyway, is he?
Well, he's the supervisor, forester, so, yeah, I mean, he's managing it,
Tell him what to do before he starts.
designing the plan. That's why I had to write this, just in case he couldn't make it, so we could read his response, make sure you're in the letter.
I guess, Bill, I would recommend that we, hear from Hank. And then we ask Hank for his assessment of the forester's response to his letter and see where the hard spots are. There was, one or two things that I thought we were gonna hear about, and I didn't hear about them in either, but it's certainly a good start to, Hank's letter seems to be pretty comprehensive.
That, and the other thing I think is maybe we could do, like, pick one of our commissioners, you or Duncan here, and just maybe give an overview so that Jan can get an idea, Ed can get an idea of what the timber harvest site walk was all about.
Yeah, so I did talk to him, he said the same thing, he's currently in another meeting and he's hoping to make it, he's like third in line and whatever his meeting is unfortunately, so he's hopeful, but no guarantee, unfortunately. He said he sent in a narrative or something.
Yeah.
That's the most information. He said he feels like he's addressed the questions that you had, but if not, certainly we can do it.
Why don't we go ahead and proceed, and if he shows up, he shows up, then you got her, and, we could maybe start with, if you'd like, would you mind? Sure. Just giving us an overview of what the sidewalk was.
Sure, so we went to the site and we looked at, all the trees and we found, where the vernal pools were. Kind of located everything where they were gonna be cutting the trees and distinguish, how far from the vernal pools and wetlands he was gonna be. We looked at some of the crossings and one of them I said, I thought we said we weren't gonna use, right?
Right.
And we kind of looked at the other ones and they looked pretty solid.
They did. The crossings look really, it's all rock.
Yeah.
Because they had used them before.
Yeah.
So we kind of determined those two were pretty solid, and they weren't gonna do much damage to anything already there. Especially because he said that if they made any ruts, they were gonna smooth them all out and plant grass or, whatever, trying to mitigate any type of damage that they did, so.
The one crossing that was a little bit wet, it was, the northernmost one. It was quite wet. It's probably 20 feet, 25 feet wet terrain, and it was not quite so rocky. But probably down below it was, but that spot.
I think that's one that we said he could do, there's no big rocks there.
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
that's what I thought I would see written up in the narrative response, and
Um,
didn't see anything in here that I could tell that was addressing that northernmost crossing.
Well, so, I mean, you said at first you weren't gonna use that one, is that?
Is that the one?
Oh, we are gonna use the first one, I mean, the
Most northern one?
northern one.
Okay, and that was the one that's wet.
It's what?
That's one, what, yeah.
It's gonna need some kind of, bridging or
The
something.
one that they aren't gonna use is the one that goes across this big wide area here. We're gonna focus on this
Oh,
one that's
okay.
more narrow. And
Mhm.
there are two of them, the revised plan eliminated that crossing, but there's still the three other
Yeah,
ones as you go up. Up
Okay.
the property.
thanks.
I think that one, as long as he did like a temporary bridge deck, some over those rocks, it wouldn't even be in the wetlands, and he could clear right over it.
Right. Right, if it was bridged right, you could
Yeah.
clear it.
Is it bedrock we're talking about, or?
They're like big, huge.
No, it's like, it's a glacial overflow.
The Connecticut State Flower.
Just plowed right through the Hop River Valley and just pushed all the rocks up. And Bunker Hill is like just all, I mean, it's pretty solid rock. Almost everywhere, but there's a few spots that are quite wet. I was wondering, Marina, one more time, putting up a photo. The, I think it's number 2. What do we want to take the, tell us what's going on? You saying? Yeah, I was just gonna put this up, maybe that's that, really. Definitely have the question to know that. We can do it.
That's the first one.
So Hank, the problem with ruts is the migrating salamanders can't get out of the rut. People, I'm talking about area.
No, I scroll.
Number 2, that one's number 1. Yeah, that's a picture. Anyway, just wanted, I wanted to ask them if they were, he was gonna cut those trees down on the right, because he mentioned there are some trees. Yeah, why don't you? Hopefully it'll show up with you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share, the advisory letter from the Conservation Commission, which we drafted at our meeting, recently, last Tuesday, I believe it was. The Conservation Commission wishes to submit advisory recommendations regarding the following pending timber harvest application, application number 23-17 on 63 Bunker Hill Road. A natural resource inventory completed by the Conservation Commission identified several important wetland habitats associated with this primarily forested parcel. These include a forested scrub wetland system and at least one potential vernal pool. A second vernal pool is located along the northern boundary of the property adjacent to the town-owned land, and that's the site that you're talking about on the northern end, where there was a town-owned district that used to be one of the Route 6 alignments that converted from the Department of Transportation to the town. This vernal pool was found to be highly productive during biological surveys conducted in the spring of 2022, with over 360 wood frog egg masses, 60 spotted salamander egg masses, and a long hydro period. Hydro period is the amount of time that the vernal pools tend to hold water. Generally, when they hold water for a longer period of time, they are more productive in young salamanders and frogs being able to get out before they dry out. And it likely serves as an important refuge pool for the population because of that length of time and indicated by the large numbers of egg masses in there. Although this pool appears to be mostly located on town land, critical forest habitat for the amphibians breeding within this pool are located on the 63 Margaret Road parcel. The populations that tend to use these pools range out anywhere, the first 100 feet is critical to them, out to 500, 750 feet, even beyond. They move pretty well throughout that forest system. As noted during the mapping of the natural resources in town, the 58-acre parcel falls within a larger 100 to 250 acre core forest ecosystem. Connecticut DEP considers core forest areas that are basically intact. In other words, they have edges that are greater than 300 feet next to a road or a development. And if you were to look on a map, our natural resource inventory map, you would see that the parcel, 58-acre parcel and adjacent parcels on other properties there constitute about 100 to 250 acres of pretty intact forest ecosystem. The amphibians that use the vernal pools and the wetlands within this ecosystem for reproduction depend upon the surrounding forest outside the breeding season. This community of amphibians is sensitive to alterations in either the wetland and/or the surrounding upland habitats, and they are considered species of greatest conservation need in the state's wildlife action plan. State of Connecticut every 10 years updates what's called a comprehensive wildlife action plan, where they identify the critical habitats and critical species to focus on, and actions to try to preserve and protect those. They're in the process now of updating that plan. It's actually undergoing right now. It is also likely that spotted turtles move seasonally among wetlands throughout the forest. Spotted turtles are protected by the Connecticut Threatened and Endangered Species Act. The Conservation Commission recognizes that timber harvests are considered an as-of-right activity, providing financial value and fuel for home heating. Timber harvest can also play an important role in managing for aesthetics, water quality, and wildlife habitat, and improve overall forest health. As is often the case, however, balancing these interests depends on the where, when, and how of the timber harvest. Therefore, the commission requests that the landowners not only consider the stewardship value of the forest management, but also that of protecting populations of conservation-sensitive wildlife and their critical habitats. We therefore recommend that the landowners work with the forestry company to implement the following best management practices to avoid or minimize impacts to critical species and their habitats. And just so it's clear, I footnoted in the letter, these recommendations these are based on peer-reviewed scientific studies that are pools and amphibians. And there's a pretty good body of literature and studies associated with that. So the recommendations are: you're not to disturb or harvest trees within the vernal pool depressions, which means within the active wetland, or the wetland boundaries, staying pretty much out of the wetlands. Maintain a minimum of 75% forest canopy cover with trees that are 20 to 30 feet tall within a zone of 100 feet surrounding each of the vernal pools and the forest wetland. So what that means is it doesn't preclude harvesting within there, but it's suggesting that you leave 75% of the forest. The reason we like to do that is the nutrients for the vernal pools based on the leaves that fall into the pools and break up. It's not based on sunlight, which is typical of ponds in most systems. And that skating also maintains cool conditions. So maintaining a 75% canopy around there helps provide that. So to be very selective in the trees that are removed within those, if any trees are proposed to be removed. Avoid operating heavy machinery within the 100-foot zone surrounding the vernal pools and wetlands. And I put a caveat in here. Normally we recommend staying completely out of those, but except along the existing main forest access road. Because of the site there, there is an existing main road that is adjacent to the main vernal pool and also to the one on the northern side. However, because of the way the topography of the site and the way the wetlands and the vernal pools are, there really isn't a proven or feasible alternative to relocate that road and try to come around, either because of the steep topography on the northern side or the layout of the wetland that pretty much crosses. And it's already pretty much an existing main road. So we're not recommending that any modifications that necessarily need to be taking place because of that. However, use appropriate erosion control measures at wetland and drainage crossings, and this is important to remove those before March 1st. The breeding season for the amphibians, they start around March first, depending again on how our weather is this winter, which as we all know, and we weather, it happens. But it could be as early as March first, where they start moving. So the animals will be coming out and starting to move from the forest into those wetlands. So any disturbance that occurs during that time could really have a significant impact. So ideally, that any erosion control measures would be removed prior. Minimize the creation of ruts and smooth out any rutted areas that are 6 inches or greater in depth at the completion of the operation to prevent them from holding water. And the reason for that is simply that if they fill with water, they act as decoys. As the salamanders and frogs come out, some of them will actually try to lay their eggs within those ruts that fill with water. And they typically will not hold water for a long period of time, so those eggs would die. And we call those decoys. So if you smooth out those ruts, it's not holding water. And then leave tops and trims where the trees fell, because that helps provide cover for them. And it also creates less disturbance. One of the things we always are concerned about, and I know the plan is to minimize where the skidder trails are and the roads are, is you don't want to impact, compact the forest. So those are some standard recommendations for timber harvest in the vicinity of rural pools and wetlands with those species. So as in an advisory capacity, we just hope that the landowners, the forestry company will take that stewardship opportunity and not only balance the use of the forestry, but also for our wildlife species. A representative of the Conservation Commission with expertise in rural pools and wetlands. Conservation is available to provide in the field guidance regarding the harvest plan, should this be of interest to the landowners and forestry. And we'd be more than happy to do that. So I thank you for that consideration, and thank you for submitting the advisory letter for this out. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer.
I like those recommendations, I think they seem reasonable.
I'm gonna read this from Boston. I bet you read that.
I have not seen them. It's a vote that I didn't see.
No.
I posted it this afternoon.
Yeah.
But I just got it.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Yeah, I got it. I wanted to make sure. Yeah,
Okay, so is it available that Marina can put it up on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It does.
And Hank, you ought to come up and grab a chair close by so you can read it. You ought to come up where you make sure you can read it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
This one?
Yep, yeah.
Boy. Okay, so this one?
You know.
Yeah, that'll probably do.
You want me to print some copies, I can run down and pass them out. You do?
I think Hank might be the only guy, that didn't get a chance to review it before he showed up there.
Is it easier to read this way?
No, I'm good. Yeah. Thank you.
So I could see where the bottom two recommendations that Hank had, were agreed to by the forester. I wasn't exactly sure.
Scroll.
Yeah, it's.
So is the forester, if they get an approval tonight, can they give a more accurate prediction about when they would get the harvest?
According to this, it says it can no longer guarantee it. Between March and February.
Because they're just saying they can't guarantee anything.
Right, well, and, even in this first one, there will be minimal trees cut and removed from wetlands. Water courses and vertical boundaries, then minimal is in the eye of the beholder. If,
On the sidewalk were trees marked that were gonna be taken.
No, the trees weren't marked, when you're taken, he just marked where they weren't gonna go in, the wetlands.
Is there a chance they could mark the trees that they wanna take within the 100-foot zone around?
It would be hard. I don't know, I don't get, you know what kind of numbers he's gonna be looking at as far as cutting those trees? I know 100 core wood.
I don't have the exact numbers on me,
Yeah.
you know, given that the land has been harvested a few times in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's really just kind of sporadic, getting, you know, any of the larger trees that weren't taken the last time, you know, in some areas outside of the wet areas. But as far as number of trees, I couldn't say for sure how many that's gonna be.
No, it'd be pretty hard, that's like a question, how many?
There, ballpark, how many trees they were being marked and taken. I just don't have.
A lot of the trees are dead, a lot of the trees are dead.
1,004 trees, so
I'm only thinking about the 100-foot.
I don't know what the number of trees.
Yeah, the only responses I have to a couple of things. One is, you know, it's referencing not removing trees within the wetlands or the water courses, but it doesn't really reference the 100-foot area. So I guess that's the one, as long as they're, you know, you're willing, and really this is more up to you, because the foresters work for the landowners.
Sure.
Whether, you know, from the standpoint of the wildlife, you know, try maintaining that 75% canopy within there. You know, there, from the main wetland area, it didn't look like there had been a lot of trees removed from, or if there were trees that were very selective that were removed, you pretty much had 100% canopy cover on the main area, with the exception of where the crossing, original crossing was, the far western one that you're no longer using. The northern one, however, there was removal of trees on the one side. However, the other side of that is all forested, and that's on the town land. So I think it's just being judicious on any additional trees on that northern one, within the 100-foot zone, because there's already been a cleared area there. The other area, other wetland area along the whirlpool, there's probably much more discretion, because it doesn't look like there was, if there were removal, it was selective. So there was still pretty much 100% canopy through both of those wells. So as long as the forester understands that you're trying to maintain that level of protection within there and be, you know, judicious on the trees that are removed within that, I think you're fine. Outside of that, that, you know, it's less of an issue, because you're not clear cutting, you're doing, you know, that, so it's really that 100-foot zone.
Sure.
The only other comment I would have then, if they're not, because I understand that the dilemmas of whether we get frozen ground or not. So what I would suggest is, if the bullet here where number 3, where they talk about the, you know, removal by March 1st. So if they're not able to remove the mats by March 1st, I would leave them in. So in other words, if you get to the harvest and you're harvesting, I mean, it's gonna be harvesting in March would be a potential problem because the animals are moving. You know, there could be significant mortality because they're gonna be on the surface and they're gonna be moving. And they're gonna be moving throughout that forest area going to the wetlands. So that presents a dilemma. I would almost, you know, say, if you're not able to, would you consider pausing and harvesting outside of the breeding season? You know, maybe looking at harvesting what you're able to do in the winter time. And then if you still have harvesting to do, skip that spring, because it's also not a good time to be running heavy machinery through there during the spring, and then harvest through the rest of the, you know, in the summer when it's a little drier. So, you know, once again, that depends on the weather, which we don't know, but rather than just following a recommendation of March 1st, it'd be better to leave them then and not haul them out.
Yes, just the 2 points, the first one you made, it may not have been very clear, but the last 2 times that there was, logging occurring, whether it was by us or by, Hull last time, there were, you know, trees taken sort of the picture you had with the path with the pond on the right, I don't know if that's what you're considering.
That's a little,
There, certainly around that wet area, there were no trees taken
Yes.
then, and there's no plan to take it
yeah, I
down.
didn't,
From that area out to where the northern coast crossing would be, that area kind of was where they focused last time, and that's now done.
Okay.
So there's really no plan to take much, if any,
Right.
in that area that you're talking about. So, the other part of the forest is really where the majority of those trees that weren't taken the last couple times will be taken. So I don't think there's any plan to be within that 7,500 feet of any of those pools for this upcoming round.
okay,
The second part is, to us, it doesn't matter if we do it now or if we do it next summer, so I can talk to Austin about the timing of when he's planning to do this. Given their new schedule, the delays, if it makes sense to just do it next summer, we'll do it next summer. There's really nothing that's saying that we have to get it done right now.
Okay.
So it just seemed like a convenient time for us if we were able to do it in
Yeah.
November, December. But obviously with some of the delays, if we need to move it to the summer, that's no problem.
yes, yeah, I mean, the ideal time is the winter, because everything's pretty much, but again, with the way our winters are going scheduled, so. Yeah, so, no, if you could, I would just avoid that spring season, because that's when they're gonna be active and there's a lot of activity going on, so.
Yeah, I think everyone would be happy to avoid the spring.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's right, that they can come in, if the market can come in, drop some trees now and not go out. I need a top, that's what I need, a house with tops.
That would be one reason to get it done a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But I don't think the logging company will want to drop them now and take them later, because they usually have a 1 to 2 month window from when they drop it to when they want to take it. So, but I'll talk to Austin about the timing and see if I can persuade him to get it into this winter month.
Yeah.
But if not, then, we'll see what we need to do.
That's great. And as I said, we'd be happy to come out, I'd be happy to come out at any time, if there are questions about some of the sites.
I was wondering if it would be that, forget what direction that is, but that third crossing next to that vernal pool.
The one that we sort of ended at, or
Yeah.
the one, there was the one further, what we call the northernmost
Yeah.
one where it kind of goes down in the dip, is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, well, owner of the forest would be able to start there, finish that area before,
Yeah,
because then you can work in the area between the two.
and pull the mats out, as that.
Yeah, because then you can do that
Sure.
first.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's further than you get.
Then we can talk about a lot about that.
Oh, it looks like he's on a Zoom call.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I was just waiting for the right time to introduce myself. There was a lot of discussion there. I apologize for being late, but thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm not sure what questions and concerns you folks have went over. If you'd like, we can go over them again. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the consensus is or what the progress is looking in and discussing details regarding the timber harvest proposed on Bunker Hill Road property there.
Well, I guess I had a question, and that would be, if we did approve the application tonight, when would you be able to plan, when would you be able to get in there? We've talked about the desire to do it over the winter. You said you can't guarantee that because of the delays. But, given, if we were to approve it tonight, could you be out by the end of February?
Yes, as you mentioned, my previous intention was to have the timber harvest happen this winter time. Obviously with delays, which I understand, that has obviously been pushed a little bit. So really at the end of the day, it depends on our subcontractor's schedule. If he is able to get there, if the application is approved tonight and he's able to get there in the next 2-3 weeks, I'm gonna send him there in the next 2-3 weeks to get started. It really depends. Obviously, I'm trying to keep an eye on weather. It being 50 degrees again this weekend isn't helping much of anything, but The best shot, as you folks, as I overheard, besides waiting for next summer, would be to try to capitalize on it this winter time. Ideally, when the ground is frozen, we're having multiple nights in the 30s and the 20s, et cetera, et cetera. So ideally, I'd like to get it done sooner than later if possible, just because we also don't have the promise of a dry summer anymore. As we mentioned with the frozen winter, these days it's hard to tell, especially the past couple years. This summer, we've had a ridiculous amount of rainfall and precipitation, which hasn't helped anybody's cause in terms of logging and timber harvesting across the state in southern New England. So, although I think waiting for summer could be a great idea, it also might not be for that retrospect. And in terms of the wildlife, as said previously by the gentleman, I'm sorry I didn't get your name before, but the animals aren't moving at the wintertime. They're moving in the summertime. Wintertime ideally is the best time to harvest. Even if we don't have the ground conditions we wish for, I think it is the least intrusive in terms of wildlife impact. So that's my thoughts is if I can get my subcontractor there by the end of the month, we will get him there and he very well should be able to get it done by the end of February, if not very early in March. But if it's any appeasement, one thing we can do is I can have him conduct the timber harvest around the wetland and the watercourse areas first, and then stick to the upland portions of the property besides the street, besides the wetland crossings. And then he'll finish those last, so there will be minimal impact to any creatures if the harvest does start creeping into or towards March.
Can I respond to that? I 100% agree that the winter is certainly the best time to do it, regardless of conditions. Ideally, the frozen ground, but even absent that, it's the better time. The March though is a real problematic time. Even if you were to do the harvest around, do the closest to the wetlands first, and you were doing other areas, the animals are coming from various areas throughout that forest, so they're not just stacked up around those wetlands. In fact, those upland knolls are probably the primary habitat, upland habitat. So I would rather it be that if you got started with schedules and you found that you needed to get into March, that's where the recommendation was to sort of have a pause, because again, we could play it by ear if you were willing to, if the landowners were willing to, depending on the weather conditions. It may be that March is frozen solid and the amphibians are not starting to move until the end of March or early April, and you can go right into a good chunk of March. But it also could be that they start moving at the end of February, and we'll get, the February warmth, and we have an early spring. And what I would just try to avoid is activity during that period of time. Once they start to emerge, they're going to be very vulnerable. So it would be better to pause activity if they are active during that period of time. And we could determine that based on the weather patterns and also the monitoring we do at various sites to know when the breeding activity starts. So I think it might be one of those things that's best that if we sort of, because none of us are going to be able to predict it, we're not groundhogs. We're not going to be able to predict what those conditions are going to be. I would just like to offer that maybe, as we get toward that period, you'll have a better sense with your schedules, whether you need to go into that March period or not, and then we can see how those weather patterns are and make a determination. That would be my recommendation if you were open to it. But ideally, we all agree that it could be done before that. That's the time to do it.
I definitely agree. Yeah, like I said, I would love to guarantee it can be done by March if we get our subcontractor there by the end of the month. I'm 95% confident he can get it done by March. But that's also speaking that the ground's operable enough to work on, depending on really what kind of winter we have. There might be areas he's not able to harvest, and we might have to go back later, as you said, which is definitely possible. So it is definitely possible this harvest may have to be done in 2 stages. Ideally, we're able to get in there by the end of the month and have it all set and done by the end of February. I just cannot guarantee that, is all.
I think from a at least for me, from a wetlands perspective. As long as they stay out of the, you know, the wetland areas and, you know, they use all the tips that Hank gave for areas around it. And then as they move forward, maybe consult with Hank and, you know, their commission about, you know, the weather patterns and how everything's gonna move forward from there, timing wise.
Yeah, you pretty much have your thumb on the weather, you know what it's been gonna do, like, once March first rolls around, if it's like a mud bath, it's just another one. Yeah, take a pause, at least on your property, that section there should be. Yeah, avoided during that period of time.
Can we include this in a two-part where harvest go forward, frozen ground period? But once the thaw comes and the rain comes, we then pause and we have a second level approval? Maybe we look at it. I can't do that.
No, well, I mean, the thing is that the timber harvests are as of right use. So, I mean, we're kind of like limited in what we can, you know, what kind of conditions you can impose on it.
We can put conditions on calling out through the wetlands.
Well, yeah, in the crossing, which is really what
Yeah.
what this application is about, is,
Yeah.
the crossings that are needed. And then harvesting in and around the wetlands isn't as of right use. So we have to be careful what we, you know, kind of conditions you pose on it. So we don't really have the authority to.
Boston, how long does it take to get the corduroy out once you're done harvesting?
Say that again, sorry?
How long does it take to get the corduroy mats out of the wetlands areas after you're done harvesting?
It really depends on how many mats we put in. I mean, realistically, it takes for assuming there's 12 mats in a crossing, which if we did that, it would just be for that southernmost crossing where it's the long pre-existing access road. It would take the subcontractors all of a couple of hours to have them removed.
Okay, so it's pretty quick.
Yeah, it is very quick. Yes.
No, so as I was, you know, thinking about all that we've been saying here, it sounds like a condition of approval might be for the forester, the property owner, Joe and Hank to get together on site before they started. So Hank, you could, you know, point out those areas that you're most concerned about. And I think if it's up north, you could start, you know, there and work your way south, might be a good way to go about it. But that seems like up at the north end of the property is where you thought it was most environmentally sensitive.
Well, I mean, the whole, the areas of 100 feet around all of those are sensitive from the standpoint of the habitats there. So it's really more sort of a broad advisory recommendation as far as handling the harvest within those and the access. I think that the challenge is the schedule, you know, if activity goes into that spring season because of the stuff, so.
Yeah, so I was thinking we'd get this group together before you start, so you can go and show where you're most concerned. And then we would require another meeting of that team about the 15th of February to evaluate how the winter's gone, you know, and when it would be best for the environment to stop. And again, the property owners, he's got a right to go forest, but we do have a say on the crossing of wetlands, that sort of thing. But I think by 15 February, we know how the winter's going, whether the ground's frozen hard or that sort of thing.
Yeah, my only concern, Jed, is that I think that, I don't want the commission to be put in a bad spot where, because Joe's correct, the commission jurisdiction is on the crossings and the deposition in the wetlands.
Yep.
And handling those. The Conservation Commission, ours is an advisory recommendation to the landowners or contracting with the forester to implement from a stewardship standpoint, best management practices, that we discussed. So I don't want it to be perceived that the condition was associated with.
No, I'm just trying to make a condition that the property owner and the forester take advantage of the experience that you've got to, my sense is they want to they are good stewards of the land.
Yeah, that's why I said, that's why.
And I think they want to, they want to do it right.
That's why I said.
And they probably appreciate you getting there, and we could just ask that meeting of, the four take place so that they can take advantage of your knowledge and try to do the best that they can.
Well, I'll leave that up to the planners.
Okay.
To avail that. Their place.
It sounds to me, though, that we should have a condition of approval that, the mats are out by the 1st of March. That seems to be a pretty hard date with you.
Or, well, I'll be careful, because if they get into March and they end up saying, okay, well, they still need to do stuff, rather than, I don't want them to have to take them out. Like I said, it would be better to leave them.
If they're gonna come back.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they're not gonna come back and they're close enough to being done,
Right.
they gotta be.
That's where the gray area is. And I'm comfortable with not necessarily being a condition, as long as, you could condition from the standpoint of the crossings. And how to handle those, they need to be reevaluated from spring,
Yeah,
with the crossings. And, take that may be a way to do it, because that's, I think, in.
and I guess my only other comment was, I did think that based on the sidewalk, there would be a plan to put a temporary bridge across that northernmost crossing that seemed to be, pretty deep with a lot of flow, and we wouldn't want to be.
What he has planned for that.
What's that?
After Austin, what he has planned.
I don't know if he's got it. Well, Austin, do you have a plan for the northernmost crossing?
The plan for the southernmost crossing just south of the vernal pool area, correct?
Northernmost.
Yeah, the northernmost crossing, but it's the one that's just south of the vernal pool, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're planning to span that with temporary bridge mats, so in that water area, our machines won't directly be going through it. Instead, because of that curved embankment, as you mentioned, the bridge mats would be on each side of the embankment, so the machines would therefore go right over it rather than through it, and the bridge mats laying within that area. And then we would still put a couple of bridge mats on both the approaches, just because that obviously is a softer area.
Okay, and I see, so Hank is shaking his head up and down like that makes sense.
Yeah.
To me, I was expecting on what I will call the southernmost crossing, which was that long one, to be having lots of mats in there to get across. But then the little bridging thing up on that northern one that was fairly small and well defined, it looked like we could get a bridge across there. And if those couple of thoughts were agreeable, I think that would work for me.
I did have one other question for Austin. When you very first went in there, the first pool, on the right, you got several trees there. Do they have to come out? But right on the road.
You're talking about trees on the edge of, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you too well. The trees on the edge of the first crossing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we are only gonna be cutting trees that need, and big emphasis on need to be cut and removed. So what I'm planning to do for those, if we're possible and able to, is we would have the machine, which we're most likely going to be using a harvester. They would cut the tree, the stem. I would like them to keep it 5 or so feet tall at least. That way we still keep some sort of bumper tree on the edge and you're not disturbing anything too close to the ground area there. But we're only going to be cutting trees that are needed for access. If we end up hitting a couple of trees and scraping them, it really depends on how bad that damage is to the tree, if it's going to die or if it has the ability to heal over. Really depends how much of that vascular cambium, the living part of the tree layer, that we actually disturb. But we're gonna only cut what we need to cut.
It's a pretty wide area there. I wouldn't expect that you'd have to cut any of those to have access.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could stay.
Yeah, I think that we can.
Cause it is pretty rocky on that other side.
That's, as you saw, that's where we have the heavy, our dump truck, heavy dump truck, traversing across that, and that's as bad as it gets when we see the picture, as far as with us.
Right, it's not like 6 inches deep, right, like that, it's maybe an inch, 2 inches. And again, Joe, just a question on how much, where our authority ends. I know we've got upland, we've got streams. Do all streams have 100-foot upland review area next to them?
In Andover, yeah,
So,
except for the, special, there's an
no,
special,
which go to 200 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, so when Hank was concerned about the 100-foot around the vernal pool, that's really, we've got upland review area jurisdiction around the vernal pool.
Not my understanding, Joe, is that's not, because timber runs, because it has.
Yeah, in wetlands and upland review areas, it was written into the act to provide for that, for farming and agriculture.
So the only-
and forestry.
The only thing we can do is we took jurisdictional review because we were gonna put mats in the wetlands.
Yeah, because you considered
Yeah.
it fill,
Okay, so.
which is road building, which
Yeah.
is
No,
not, it's not
I
an,
understand.
yeah.
You can drive through there with no mats, and we have no authority. We put mats in there to be good stewards, and now we have,
Well, creating significant erosion would be a violation.
Okay.
So if you just
Okay.
tore it up and
yeah, okay,
caused that, you'd still.
got it. Okay, I would try to make a motion if we have no other questions by the commission here.
Or comments, any other comments, or I did have one comment, for the landowners. I'd say you guys take a really good shape, get that land in really good shape for,
Yeah, so if I could just say one more thing to that, so I personally have been, I grew up there, we moved there when I was 8 years old. We've been cutting firewood for as long as I can remember. For the first 30 years, 35 years of my life, my father would only allow his own vehicles to go through there because we had control over minimizing damage to the woods and really leaving the woods as pristine as possible. And it wasn't until just recently where we finally said, our machinery's getting pretty old, we're getting pretty old. That's when we started looking for a company that we felt comfortable using that would do minimal damage as well. Someone that we trusted to basically leave no trace or leave as minimal of a trace. We talked to many different companies. I had a long talk with a representative at Hull, and I felt that they shared the same value that we did. We chose them the last time, and we felt they did a phenomenal job. When you walk around the woods, it's very difficult to tell where they were the last time. And that is a very critical thing for us, is that we don't want the forest decimated. You mentioned keeping 75%. I would argue that we would keep it at more than 75% tree coverage, just as we want the forest look. That's just how we've always been. If you want to discuss stipulations, you can, but I think we'll be the first ones to say, no, the ground's thawing out, we want to stop, we want to delay.
that's what
I think we're gonna be the most eager to keep the forest in the best condition that it can be. So I just wanted to leave you with that, I know maybe some homeowners want, they'll be fine if they're cutting, but that's certainly not.
No.
I appreciate that. We all appreciate that. Okay. Well, I would make a motion to approve permit application 23-17, subject to the following conditions. There would be a temporary bridging in place over the northern crossing. The forester meet with Hank, Joe, and the property owners prior to the start of forestry operations to discuss environmental concerns that the Conservation Commission has. And again, around 15th of February, to just target how the weather is going over the course of the winter and you know, decide on a course of action to wrap up for the winter. And that if operations aren't complete by the 1st of March, they will be secured with the site stabilized until sometime later in the summer.
Thanks, Ben.
Like to hear from the property owner, if you got any comments on, you know, something there that sounded ridiculous or that,
No, like I said, I mean, you know, I will respect your decision. I think, you know, like I said, we'll be the first ones to say.
I think you will.
So I don't know that it would be necessary, but that's certainly okay with us.
Okay? Is that okay with you, Joe?
Yeah, I just, the March 1st thing, I don't know if I do like a strict prohibition on that, just in case, you know, if it's
Well, I
frozen
think that's
solid.
why you have February 15th to discuss. it.
Yeah,
Well, we're just leaving the mats, the temporary mats in on March 1st. It's not done, right? That's what we're talking.
Depending on the,
Depends if they're,
right,
yeah, I mean, if it's
It
if
doesn't
they
frozen,
got everything else but one tree, they might decide to leave that tree in there or something, but Joe can assess how it's going and let us know how it went, and,
yeah,
I'm
share some
I'm thinking it
pictures,
would
yeah.
be a satisfactory plan. The property owners want to take care of the place there, you know. It's probably overkill, but I think, you know, we would want to put those stipulations in there as a matter of routine with whoever was coming, just to make sure that, you know, we're taking as good a care of the environment as we can, do our part too.
Okay, that was seconded.
second, we voting? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's 5-0-0 in favor of the timber harvest going forward with stipulation. And I'm not gonna try and reach those.
Nope. But Marina,
And Austin can start. Trying to get everything scheduled.
Definitely will do. Yeah, thank you all, and we'll go from there, and I'll be in touch with Joe and Hank and the landowners, and we'll proceed from there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate that.
Good job, Jed. I think you were right. I thought you gotta do that no matter what.
well,
So.
you know, it goes back to, you know, the rough start we had, 409 Lakewood, put the new houses there.
Yeah,
And they were supposed to be coming in and talking to Joe ahead of time, and
never did that.
never did that, you know, it would be so much better if Joe had a chance.
And what
to
I'm
talk
letting
to the
that-
guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for the red decoy thing. I saw that.
Yeah.
As soon as you say, I'm like, pretty much, I've seen them drying out before it gets, you always got a few places.
Good night, Hank. Thank you.
How do you get it?
He wants us to review the regular schedule. Did you go through all the dates
Oh,
for the year, for next year?
yeah.
I mean, I had a question, but Joe answered it. It was just that Easter thing.
Right, new business, we don't have any new business, okay? Is that, 25 Cider Mill Road, is that gonna be something we're gonna be doing, or is that,
No, it shouldn't be. It's
it's not really going over the water, just,
no, it's next to, it's. I don't know if you were on when they did that bridge
yeah,
across, yeah, so there's that little like turnaround there, they want to put a,
garage.
yeah. Well, it's like a shed, there's no garage, it's like a building, storage building, I guess.
Looks like a garage to me.
Yeah, it is, but it's without the,
Oh, it's not,
they're not putting the storage as
Oh.
far as I know.
Oh, then it's a shed.
Yeah, just a large shed. So I'm working on that now, I got some stuff from them, I'm gonna put a condition, because it is. Like, we were looking at different, I've been out there, we looked at putting it up near the house, and then that's not, because you have to carry everything back, and
Right.
everything would run down the hill. Then there was another spot where there was a parking spot that was pretty close to the stream. And then where they wanna put it now is on the other side, a little bit further away, kind of like the best spot we could think of. So I'm gonna put a condition to meet with them and get the erosion control. Cause I mean, the big risk would be,
Pretty close to that stuff.
like during construction, yeah, sediment going in there, so,
Plus the electric, they're gonna run the power?
there's a pole. Well, there's a pole right before that footbridge to get to their house, so they're just gonna dig a trench across the driveway that's already there, it's just a gravel driveway. To run the power there, and there's no plumbing or anything up there, so, it's just that,
Okay, so that's not gonna be with us anyways, right?
no, it's all upland review.
So agent report,
Yeah, so that's that one,
number 8.
yeah, that's, we just talked about that one,
Oh, that is the one we just,
yeah.
all right.
And then, the next one was, jurisdictional ruling review of a timber harvest, it's on, Boston Hill Road, there's no house there or anything, I met with the landowner and we walked the property, and, he was another guy that was really concerned about avoiding, wetlands, but we figured out a way to get around it, there was like a vernal pool, there's a road going up, kinda like that one, but it's, it's well above it, it's not in wetlands. There's a vernal pool. I think I don't know if I put any pictures online, but I put the information for it. But anyway, there's a vernal pool that you can, if you go down the road, you can get around it and access the other side. And then there's another wetlands, and then there's like a section of upland, and then it goes back into another depression. It's not really like a water course, it's kind of like a wet area. But you can take that, there's like an old road, stone wall, you can go through there, so you can access every part of the property without having to cross any wetlands. So we came up with that plan, ran it by the forester, he said it was fine, you could do that. So I signed off on that, because there's no wetlands crossing.
Okay.
Good.
That was awesome. You guys have any questions on that one?
Okay, no,
I mean, I don't know, does that get done a lot in town?
Timber harvest?
Yeah,
I haven't had one in a few years. I remember a few years ago, we had a handful of them. This one, the guy was just trying to make a little extra money, I think. He didn't have a ton of wood to harvest, but he was, yeah, so I don't know.
I mean, the people that were just here, they use it for their heating, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, he was, I think he's a builder and, does like post and beam shed, so he's gonna use some of it for that, and then some of it they were gonna sell.
this is up on, Boston Hill.
Yeah,
You were talking about.
Yeah, people that were here, just when
They have an old house, like 1700s,
yeah.
and it doesn't have any insulation, but they probably go about 20, 30 kilometers with it.
That's not a tree in your yard.
Good thing you've got over 50 acres.
Yeah.
I handed in the other business, the 24 regular meeting schedule. I had it with me, but I gave it to Carol Lee. So.
It looked fine.
You got one too?
Yeah.
I think I
Okay.
sent it out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But no, that's all right. I mean, I don't know how much reviewing you need to do,
It's basically the same as the other years.
but yeah.
Holidays, it's the following Tuesday and every other time. First Monday.
And, next meeting is Tuesday, January 9th.
Well, I recommend you make a motion to approve the schedule.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, we gotta approve that, Scott, but yeah, that's why.
I'll second it. Did you make the approval? Did I miss that?
I'll make a motion to approve the schedule.
I'll second it.
Everybody that's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. And our next regular meeting is January 9th, 7 o'clock, we're in the same place, if we have any business.
Nothing yet.
That, I guess we're ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:19 PM on December 4th.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Very good. Got all this paper, long while, that I need.
I can throw some in the fire.
Oh, you need.